Okay, this is a follow-up video that I did a few months ago about why certain comic book sites are biased and they may not need to be. I was on just scouting around, and then I was looking on the comic book movie website, and obviously you had yours truly, Josh Wilding, where shock horror, what the guy decides to do is to get something that is a DC product, and then what you do is that you put it in big bold letters, but then then you make the article negative about the particular thing. Now, at the end of the day, when it comes to whether it's a film, a video game, or anything like that, reviews are subjective. So a movie can be fantastic, it can be good, it can be average, it can be bad, and so that's neither here or there in terms of what you think of a particular movie or video game or any product for that matter. But for me, when you're being kind of biased because it's Marvel, I know obviously Marvel is the big thing now, and quite rightfully so, because obviously now Marvel are a big franchise now, and they've found a formula that works and that's made them successful, and quite rightfully so. Most of the movies have been entertaining. There've been some that have been great, some have been good, some average, some bad, but you know, that's in the eye of the beholder. But they've hit everything, so they quite rightfully deserve to be successful. But what gets on my nerves is that when you get sites like that, or any other sites, where they're clearly hating on anything else because it's not a Marvel product. And what I've noticed on that site, and what I've observed, is that whenever there's something that's associated with Marvel, they're all pro Marvel, which is fine. But when something, for example, let's say for example you got a film like Black Widow, which I didn't think was a great movie, and there's been one or two others, right? Yeah, they might criticize it, and they might do, but they're kind of more lenient on the actual movie, right? For example. But yeah, if it's a DC movie, and it's say that the DC movie genuinely isn't a great movie, what they'll tend to do is that they'll keep making articles upon articles on how DCU's finished and this, blah, blah, and yeah, you can criticize something, which is what something is there for, to be criticized. But for me, I like when criticize something, but you're being intelligent about as to why you criticize something, and then you explain why you criticize it. So it's a kind of an intelligent. So there's been people, when it comes to video games or movies, where they've criticized that particular thing, and I haven't necessarily agreed with it, but I can understand from their perspective as to why they haven't liked it, or they're picking out the criticisms of that particular thing, and that's fine because you're explaining yourself. So, but as I said before, but I don't know why that these sites are kind of doing that, because I think, as I've said, I may have said in that previous video, and I'll recap what I'm about to say, is I've been a comic book fan pretty much all of my life, both DC and Marvel, whether it's been the comics of certain characters, cartoons that were around in my era, and movies and so forth and so forth. And I remember a time when it wasn't popular to be a comic book fan, whether or not like you're reading comics or having comic book merchandise, whether it was like baseball caps or T-shirts, and people used to mock me, and even some of my friends that used to wear superhero T-shirts and baseball caps and jumpers and so forth and so forth. And obviously now it's all different. Now it's all popular. And I remember a time when there wasn't a lot of superhero stuff around, like movies. I mean, some of them were hit or miss or cheaply made. I mean, you had the one or two that were successful, but they were far and few between. And now I think we're kind of spoilt in the sense that we've got an abundance of movies and TV shows, whereas like maybe 20, 30 years ago, right, that wasn't the case. And it's a good thing now that it's become popular in the mainstream. Comic book stuff being popular, and then getting their fair dues. when it comes to being taken seriously. And I know a lot of the comic book people now, they're more into they got into it via the movies, whereas me, I got into it. For me, it was the comic book source and the cartoons. So for me, it's an overall spectrum of why I kind of like stuff. And I think sometimes we're kind of spoiled on the amount of stuff that we've got now, whether it's cartoons, TV shows, movies now. We're absolutely, I think in some ways, kind of spoiled, and we kind of take things for granted on how we've got the abundance of superheroes. Some of them work, some of them don't. But it's the fact that now that we've got a whole different broad stroke of ranges of stuff. Some superhero TV shows or movies where they're serious, sort of more dark, more adult, or the more comedy based. But you've got the whole spectrum of from serious to more light-hearted, or like say you got She-Hulk series, which kind of breaks the fourth wall. A lot of the stuff it does, so you wouldn't consider that series being serious. So I don't understand why sites like Comic Book Movie and other sites, because there are loads of them, I'm just using them as an example, are so negative towards anything that isn't a Marvel product. And then as for you see it on there all the time, and I don't know if it's because half of it, obviously they get to see these films first, so they feel as if that if they criticise it or start being nasty, that they're not going to get the little invites, or they're not going to get the interviews and merchandise and free gifts, etc, and free tickets. So I don't even know if that's the reason why these people, that's why they do that. But for me, if I want to be sold on a TV series or or a movie, I want to be sold, and then I want to sit there and check out to see what the movie's like before I watch it. And you want to see like a non-spoiler review, obviously, because then it wouldn't be any point in watching it. You would want to sit there to read something where the story, where the actual review of the movie or TV series is objective, non-biased, and it's kind of being honest. And even if you don't, even the person doesn't like it, but then you end up watching it and you end up liking it or not liking it, at least it's giving you that intrigue to then go out and then think, I'm going to watch that TV series or movie, I'm going to check it out on that person's recommendations, or what that person has sold you the actual idea of the actual TV show or kind of movie. And for me, real comic book fans, as of all, I grew up more DC because of the characters that I could relate to, with Superman and the Flash and Batman. But obviously I've always loved Spider-Man, Iron Man, Hulk, the X-Men. So, when the X-Men movies first came out, obviously the excitement of it, seeing some of them I think I saw in the cinema, some of them I saw at home. But, it was seeing those movies that, as a comic fan, you can think finally these things have been brought to life. And obviously they take their liberties in changing certain things, but it's just seeing all that, that got me kind of excited as a comic book fan. And that's what I am. For me, I'm first and foremost, I'm a comic book movie fan. So yeah, I watch shows like The Arrow, Batwoman, The Flash, Green Arrow, or Arrow was known as, and then I watched the DC the Marvel shows, like the animated Fox Spider-Man series, She-Hulk, Captain America, was it the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? They're supposed to be developing a Vision series, and obviously he had a movie with Black Widow, not Black Widow, sorry, with Scarlet Witch. So that was kind of, so I enjoyed, you can sit there and say whether or not you totally enjoyed it, but I watch anything, I pretty much try to watch anything that is comic book related. And then there's been things like The Sandman, which I need to finish up on, so I'm halfway through it, and I've enjoyed that. And obviously some of them are dark, some of them are light-hearted, but overall as a comic book fan, it's seeing these things brought to life. So when you're getting people like those sites alienating certain things because it's not Marvel. I actually really find it ridiculous, and I have wondered to myself, are these people really comic book fans, or are they just shills that just do things simply because of the fact that they know it's going to get them hits and views and tickets and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I can't stand people like that when they cause division, and it does. And the same thing with Star Trek and the Star Wars community, when you see all that stuff happening, because that's all. Unless you've got shares in those companies, or you're working for them, to me, I don't understand the arse licking. And that's all. I'm obviously I'm a Nintendo fan, Microsoft, PlayStation, and I love all three of them. They've got their strengths and they've got their weaknesses. And even though I'm a big fan of all three, I will criticise business practices that they do wrong. Similar to with Apple, where I'm a massive Apple fan, and it's simply more to do with not because it's more to do with the fact that I just love the design of their products and the interface of the products with what they use. But there are things that I don't like what they do. Like for example, I've often thought that the lightning cable's crap, and it's very expensive to buy a new one, and they're very fragile. I do think their products are too expensive, and they don't need to be, even though I'm a fan of it. When the Apple products work, they work, and it's great. But when the products start to get old, they really don't work. So that for me is kind of a criticism. So, but then at the same time, I can still enjoy the products, but then I can still criticize it and not be biased just because I only have Apple products. But I can still criticize it, and it's as way as I see it, it's not negative, but it's constructive criticism, which is, I think, there's a difference between negative criticism and constructive criticism. And that kind of leads me on to my final piece, where there's a lot of these right-wing YouTubers which pop up on a lot of my feed, even though I don't follow any of them. And I've noticed that with all of them, and then they're all in the same group, and I'm not going to name who they are because it's not the kind of thing I do, where they're negative about everything. It's almost as if they want every TV show to fail, whether it's Marvel or DC, or whether, and it sometimes can be to do with the fact whether they think there's an SJW agenda or a woke agenda, and they're always negative. And I know why. Maybe I know why they do it, in a sense that it's going to get them the views, and obviously you're going to get the money. And I would love to sit there and see these same YouTubers actually, even for a week or in a few days, actually do positive content, which we all know that they're not going to do, because it's not going to get them the views that they're getting. But it just makes me sick, where you see a lot of these people like that, where they're just ultra negative, and it's almost as if that they hate everything, and then and they'll never be happy with anything. And it's as I think it's from The Dark Knight Rises, where there's some people that just want to see the world burn. I think it was Alfred that tells Bruce Wayne that in one of the Batman films. I don't know if it's the Batman Begins, or I think it's for Dark Knight. I think it's for Dark Knight, where he says he got smart space. Where some people, where Batman doesn't understand why the Joker's doing what he's doing, because there's no reasoning as to why he's doing what he's doing. And then he explains that there are some people that just do things because they just like doing it, and then there's no logic as to why they do what they do. So as for when I see and then obviously there are a lot of my right wing where they're just negative, I don't even engage in their videos, because for me that's not what this stuff is about. Yes, you can have constructive criticism as to us or something, but when you're not liking something, whether it's because the character may be gay, or they see it as being woke and SJW, or a character has been black, like we saw it with the House of the Dragon, when it had black characters in it, and then they were all outraged about it, or even though it's complete and utter fiction, or like in the Lord of the Rings Amazon series, where you had a lot of them get outraged because there were like people of color in there, and then that's what they were getting upset about. Where for me, I don't care about the color of the characters. What you want is a good, strong story, and strongly written characters who have progression, and also the story has progression. That to me is what comes first, not the color of the person's skin. And then now, and a lot of them do it in a kind of a polite way without openly saying, oh, I don't like that person because obviously they're black or Asian or, you know, wherever it is, but they won't openly kind of say it. But you know, but they're heavily kind of implying it. And to me, it's a bit of a sad existence to live your life full of pure hatred. And I don't know if they're just doing it to grift, to make money, which is what I think is what's going on, and maybe they don't really believe in the cause. But yeah, I just don't understand. As for with those set of people, those sort of hatred and negativity. And as I said, with the sites regarding the Marvel, where they feel like they have to arse-lick that company, and it's kind of cringe-worthy, where people can't seem to be able to think for themselves and enjoy things. As before, I want to see a lot more. I want to see like the Marvel franchise grow, and I want to see DC finally get that together, and especially with what's going on now, where we've got James Gunn now, that's pretty much going to be in control of it. And as a comic book fan, whether you're DC or Marvel, a real comic book fan wants companies and franchises to actually succeed, not to fail. And anybody, for me, in my book, that is biased or has that kind of where they're not objective, they're not real comic book fans. Because as I said, if that site was just doing purely Marvel stuff, and that's all they're doing, like you get sites, YouTubers that just do Xbox or Nintendo or Sony or PC content, then it kind of makes sense, because you know that that's what their whole focus on, because that's what they're into, purely Xbox or purely PlayStation, purely Nintendo or purely like PC and Steam, and that makes sense. But when you're sitting and you're calling yourself a comic book site, and then you actually aren't being a proper comic book website, to me that's just pure poor journalism. And that's why on my YouTube channel, I've got with certain things, I always try to be honest, say how I really feel about something, and also be objective, because I think that's what people want. People want honesty, and then it's something, whether or not it's with what I'm talking about, or even with politics now, wherever you're, like how I am in the UK or in America, across the world. People are sick of politics now, because all these politicians are talking a lot of crap and treating the public like idiots and not being honest with people. And it's got to the point now where people are just fed up, because they just want honesty and not to be treated like idiots. So that's what I try to do, and that's the way I was raised. So anyway, that's my little rant over. So yeah, I mean, hopefully things will get better, but I know that they won't. So I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye for now, and stay safe.